More now from the book that criticises pretty much every member of the royal family, except Harry and Meghan. Funny that. Now, Omid Scobie claims King Charles called Harry that fool after the prince's comments in a Netflix documentary. Scobie writes in his book Endgame, which is being released tomorrow, that the king didn't want people to talk about his son. But after Harry made various allegations about the royals, Charles refers to him as that fool. And it comes as Scobie revealed on Good Morning America that he knows the identities of the senior royals who made comments about Prince Archie's skin colour.
I do know who made the comments about Archie's skin colour. The names were mentioned in letters between Meghan and Charles that were exchanged sometime after the Oprah interview. We know from sources that Charles was horrified that that's how Meghan felt those conversations were, and that he wanted to, sort of as a representative of the family, have that conversation with her. And it's why I personally think that they have been able to move forward with some kind of line of communication afterwards, though they may not see eye to eye on it.
Makes you wonder if any of it's true. Do you believe any of it? Because, I mean, let's face it, they can say what they like about the royal family. They're not going to respond and dignify it with a credible reply. Scobie's made a fortune off of this tittle-tattle, and now he's finally turned his guns on Harry. And about time. Now, he is basically the Sussex's chief PR. He's been having a pop at everybody. He's caused huge damage to the royal family. Some think it's completely unforgivable, particularly when the late Queen was still alive. And yet here he is finally calling Harry that fool. But even then, he's having a go at Charles. And Charles has got a good point, hasn't he? You know, he was saying some terribly damaging things during that Netflix documentary. And people are justifiably fed up about it. No, to give his thoughts on this story now is royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams. Richard, thank you for joining us on the show. Thanks for coming on to GBNews. So here we go. Here we are once again. Now, the end game is constantly rolling on. Will there be anything left that we haven't heard by the time the book comes out?
Well, I think the important thing as we await the publication of this book, I would add that the New York Times have reviewed it and think it's pretty awful. It's well worth just remembering that Omid Scobie, a journalist who purports to know about the royal family, is someone who is a dreadful writer. So what you're going to do with this book, as you did in Finding Freedom, which is about how Harry and Meghan found freedom by leaving the royal family, what you're going to do is to wade through the most awful prose. We know that. Regarding what else he says, yes, there have been some particularly nasty extracts that I've been reading. We hear how King Charles is envious of his sons. We hear, for example, that Catherine, the Princess of Wales, shivers whenever she hears Meghan's name. There was an extract that was leaked to People magazine, which was saying how Harry heard so late regarding the Queen's last illness, and the whole thing, it seems to me, to be perfectly poisoned.
But it's fair to say that there seems to be an appetite for it. Spare was an international bestseller. It seems that the market for tittle-tattle is global and is substantial. It's made Omid Scobie absolutely minted. So it seems people like this. I just can't, for the life of me, understand how there's anything left in this book. I mean, it's been in the press globally for absolutely weeks now.
Well, they've had extracts, but the point, of course, is how many people will buy the book, but also how much you'll get paid for promoting the book. And the fact is, obviously, in Finding Freedom, we did find out through a court case which Meghan brought against the Mail on Sunday that the Sussexes had cooperated. This point is a fact. She had briefed an aide with reference to Finding Freedom, and Harry was also quoted as saying that he hoped that their cooperation with it remained in the background. As far as this book's concerned, the Sussexes say they've got nothing to do with it, and Scobie who apparently, according to the New York Times, has a complete chapter in the book which says that the Sussexes are everything that God sends. I mean, what you've got is a very negative and cruel portrait of the Princess of Wales. I mean, I think that the quotes that we've seen emphasize the fact that this is supposed to be a book about an institution that is dying. Omid Scobie said it would be happy to make money out of it. Of course, whilst this is happening, it could rescue itself, but it's in a dreadful state. What we'll discover, obviously, is a portrait of events that very clearly will be very, very, very sympathetic to the Sussexes. The New York Times had a lot of fun about the chapter dealing with them, and the chapter dealing with Catherine is apparently pretty cruel. She's human because he's seen her in fits of giggles, this sort of thing. But it's this level that I think makes Scobie somewhat of a loathsome puffball. He's deliberately trying to make his a megabucks out of tittle-tattle, gossip and innuendo. And if it's anything like Finding Freedom, that had no index and it wasn't sourced, so you couldn't verify anything that was there.
And Richard, briefly, if we could, one of the most damaging revelations is this speculation about the skin colour of Archie. And Scobie's going there with that, isn't he? He said he knows who said it and he's going to name them. And these are the most serious and damaging allegations of all towards the royal family. It would have made the late Queen ashamed.
They are, as you say, but of course it's worth remembering that Harry then changed the accusations of racism to unconscious bias, and so you must ask yourself why Scobie is bringing this issue up, and the only reason is, quite frankly, this is pure nastiness. An institution needs to learn and move on. The facts are, however, that Scobie is simply seeking sensation. That's what the book should be called.
OK, well, it's a snappy title. Royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show.